Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. As you come in today, we would love for you to put your name and city or state or location in the chat for us so that we can see where you're coming in from. That would be great. Thank you for joining us today. Please provide your name and city or region in the chat so we can see where you're from, and we'll get started in a few minutes. As we wait for folks to join the call, I will market our next two webinars that are coming up. I'll tell you about those in just a minute. Hello, Madison Clark from Alberta, Canada. I love it. Our very first person is from Canada. Awesome. Hey, Carrie, Alan, Tiffany, it's so good to see people from Cersei on the call as well. I am joining you from Bartlett, Tennessee today. As you come into the meeting, please go ahead and put your name and your city or region or state in the chat and say hi to us. I also want to let you know that we are going to be recording this. So if you would like a copy of the recording, please just let us know via email after the call, and I'll be happy to send you a copy of it. I love seeing all of these names that I recognize joining the call. It's really great. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Center for Organizational Leadership's March webinar. I am Andrea Bishop, and we will get started in just a few minutes. While I continue to admit people to the call, I'd like to go ahead and tell you about our next two webinars. In April, on April 26th, I believe, we will offer a webinar on fostering healthy communication in the workplace. And then on May the 31st, the last Wednesday in May, we'll offer a session on creating smart and effective strategic plans. And I really think both of those will be very useful and practical. As you come in, please go ahead and give us your name and where you're from in the chat so we can say hi. And I love if you are a Harding alum, let us know that as well. We love to see that. We will get started in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to give these few people who are in the waiting room time to get logged in. It's so good to see all of these names, isn't it, Todd? It's really exciting.
Yeah, there's new people and people that I know. It is neat.
Yeah, people who work just down the hall and people from Alberta, Canada, apparently. In Jefferson City, Missouri. I love that. And Scott is with us from California. It's so good to see you again, Scott. Thank you everyone for joining us. I will try to continue to admit people, but I'm going to go ahead and start the ball rolling. My name is Dr. Andrea Bishop, and I'm the director for the Center for Organizational Leadership at Harding University, and I'm so glad you could join us today. I am thrilled that we finally get to have this conversation about a topic that I know is really meaningful for so many of us. And we had a delay. We tried to do it earlier this year, but I feel like the timing is really right for today. And so I'm glad that you could join us. I want to take a moment to talk very briefly while people are still joining the call about what we do at the center at Harding. We offer a fully online master's degree in organizational leadership. So if you know of anyone who's interested in becoming a more effective leader, we are the place for you. We also offer graduate certificates in executive and workplace coaching and in human resources and in training and development. And we're very excited that in August, we will be launching an accelerated bachelor's to master's for our undergraduates on campus in leadership and innovation. Also, of course, we host these free seminars like this one that we hope will encourage you and be a resource for you in your workplace. Let me admit a couple more people. When I chose this seminar topic, I will absolutely admit to you that I was being completely self-serving. First of all, who does not want a few more tools in their toolkit to help them through anxiety and overwhelming situations? I know I definitely do. But second, I wanted a chance to partner with Dr. Todd Patten. I am so grateful that he said yes, and I am so excited to introduce you to him today. Todd has become one of my most trusted friends and advisors, and I'm confident that you'll get a glimpse into his kindness and sincerity today. He's really wonderful. He's a licensed professional counselor, and he is also the chair of the mental health and wellness programs at Harding. As Todd speaks today, please feel free to add your questions to the chat, and we are setting aside about 10 minutes at the end of the call to try to answer any of those. Our goal today is twofold. We want to first offer you at least one or two tools that can help you recenter, resettle if things become overwhelming in the workplace or at home. The second, we want to address the broader issues of how leadership can cultivate a workplace that feels safe and where employees are cared for more holistically. As Todd and I prepared for today, I read a statistic that I just cannot shake. The article said that 95% of employees who have taken time off due to stress named a completely other reason for their absence, like an upset stomach or a headache. And that rings true with me. How many times in my adult life have I actually taken a sick day for stress or anxiety? Never. But I've definitely taken sick days because of those reasons. Stress and anxiety are often the cause of many workplace absences. In fact, another article stated that $17 billion and 217 million work days are lost annually due to mental health issues in the US alone. So Todd, obviously we need your help and your expertise. Do you have any insight to offer us?
Well, thank you, Andrea. Welcome to everyone who's joined us today. That's a big question. The answer is yes, but we're going to take kind of a 30,000-foot view. It's a very large topic, and we have a limited amount of time. But I will say that I want to start out by saying this is also timely for me. This semester has been particularly stressful, not because of one particular thing, but because of maybe a few things that have kind of stacked up a bit. There's changes in leadership here where I work. There's changes in my job description. There's new tasks and assignments with that. There's changes in my family. I got kids entering college, leaving college. My bedroom had a flood in it. There's illnesses in my family. There's also fun things like weddings and ball games and keeping up with schedules and then, just sometimes busy days at work, like yesterday when I thought it couldn't get any busier and my daughter calls and says she's got a flat on the side of the road. And so I kind of wish that I was on the other end of this presentation, listening, because I need some reminders. And that's what a lot of this is going to be things you really already know. We're just kind of spending time, having time set aside to remind ourselves of things. So today we're all going to be in this together. And there's just a few things that I want to mention. In regard to Dr. Bishop's statistics, about 95% of employees who have taken time off due to stress name another reason. I think that's pretty insightful, not only because it suggests that there's a stigma associated with mental health, although I believe that that's getting better. It's still there. I believe it's getting better, but there's a stigma really when it associates itself with the workplace. So that stigma is there, it's getting better, but it also reminds me about the body-mind connection. Stress often leads to physical issues. I carry stress. When I'm stressed, I kind of carry it in my gut and my stomach, especially when I can't share my stress. It can't be seen. And because I'm in performance mode, because I have things that I have to do. So it's not necessarily healthy, but we all kind of have this psychosomatic, these issues with stress. Others carry it in their neck, maybe in their head with headache, backs. Our immune systems are often degraded. This can lead to illness and overall lack of productivity in your everyday life, lack of productivity at work, which becomes ironically it leads to more stress and becomes a vicious cycle. So it's really important that we get a handle on it. Sometimes we see stress as a thing that only, if we show it, we're weak, or that there's some kind of problems or we can't handle our business. Everyone has it. So what I want to do today is, it's already been said, is I want to talk about two main areas. What can we do about it? How can we manage it? It's not that we're going to get rid of it. And then how, as leaders, can we help our employees? First, I think we really need to think about taking care of ourselves and how do we take care of ourselves. So we only have an hour, again, and this topic is large. So instead of thinking about specific mental disorders, or mental illness, we're going to limit our discussion to anxiety, stress, by extension, maybe depression. Anxiety and depression are somewhat difficult to distinguish between at times. You may feel different, but the mechanisms, the etiology, the reasons for that are often very similar. And the medication and treatment in talk therapy is often somewhat similar. And for the sake of discussion, we're going to limit the definition of anxiety to distress. We're going to kind of globalize this. This isn't going to be a diagnostic clinical diagnoses, but we're going to think of it as distress as opposed to eustress. We know eustress helps us. A little bit of stress helps us perform and do good work, but distress does the opposite. And distress comes in different forms. Maybe it's a lot of stackable little stresses. Maybe it's some kind of other issue, but we could boil it down to calling this worry or fear. And the kind of fear that kind of stops us and makes us not be as functional. So the fear of And each of us would have to fill in that blank, or actually, more specifically, we'd have to fill in those blanks of what kind of fear it is that we're dealing with. And it's going to be very different for each individual and for our different situations. It's very much situational. So for just a second or a few minutes, let me talk about, or let me just think out loud maybe a little bit about stress in general. I always think of stress in regards to it turning up the volume on all the rest of my problems. That flat tire yesterday really is not a big deal when the day doesn't have a lot in it. But when the day has a lot in it and there's some fires to put out and this and that, and we've added another fire to put out, it can cause a lot of stress. And so we've got to think about that in regards to stress. I also may be a little bit more cranky when I'm stressed, may not be as effective. When I worked at a children's home in West Texas, when things were stressful, we had more behavior problems with kids when they were frustrated or stressed. So stress, I like to think of it as turning the volume up on some of the problems that we already have. It makes it difficult for us to handle problems. It kind of pulls down our immunity to those things, our force fields to those things. One thing I think would be important to talk about is this idea of external versus internal locus of control, internal and external locus of responsibility. I have to be a little careful with this, because this idea of internal and external locus of control is only really theoretical, and it suggests a values. And what I mean by that, in the West, especially with majority culture, it is a value that we internal locus of control, that we are responsible for our success in the direction that we take. It's not so much due to external forces, luck, or other people. I do agree with that to some extent sometimes. However, we have to think in regards to social justice and things like that. There are some things in our environment that we can do to help us feel better and do better. But where is it mostly, what I want to say is, but where is it that I have control at the moment? I can affect change on my environment, but I also need to be reminded that I am the environment. I'm part of the environment. I'm part of someone else's environment. And it's a little bit easier for me to control me than it is to control others. And so if we were to have a whiteboard and we were to write down, and I asked you, what kinds of things do we have control over? Some of those answers might be things like the thermostat in our house, how I respond to things. And we would make this long list, and I would give you some things that would say, okay, yeah, you can decide your thermostat if you have one, if your thermostat's working, or you can decide what you're eating and things like that. But mostly what I would also ask, what can you not control? What you can't control are things like the weather outside. That affects us. And just about anything else that other people do, you just really don't have control over. I mean, I have kids, I have little kids, and I have adult kids. I mean, I have little kids and I have adult kids. I don't really have control. Right now, as adults, my kids are adults, I'm trying to figure out how to parent them, which is quite a bit more difficult. I feel sometimes like I'm fishing and I've got a big, trout on the line, 10 pounds, and I got 2-pound test. And I just got to be really gentle, because really I'm just being influential. I'm not really being controlling. And I want to be influential. So I really need to control me. Now, again, going back to working with those kids in West Texas, a lot of them had some very difficult cards that were dealt to them. And it's not really fair. I had pretty good cards dealt to me in life, and it's not really fair, but ultimately they have to play that hand. And I can help them. We can work on that together, but I need them to play their hand, not fold that hand. But anyway, if I were to do this whiteboard, there'd be a list of things that you can control and a list of things that you can't control. And the list of things you can't control, I promise you, you should do this, is going to be a lot larger than the things you can control. And ultimately, if we were just to distill those down to two things, one would be you can control you and you can't control others. And you are part of that environment of other people. We can think of it in counseling, we talk about behaviorism, as I'm a stimulus, someone else is stimulating the environment, and they have to respond to that stimulus. Or we can talk about it in another theory, circular causality, in that it's the same type of thing. For instance, my dog, Max, if I want Max to get the ball and bring it back, what I actually have to do is quite a number of behaviors. I've got to hold my arm out with the ball. I have to say it just right. I have to say, get the ball, get the ball. And I have to throw it. And I have to say, drop it. And I have to say, sit, all these things I have to say. And I have to say, just like this, get the ball. If I say, Max, you need to mosey on over, and when you get a chance, bring that ball over to me, he's not going to understand me. Max is doing one thing, and I'm doing about a million things, especially if we take into account everything that I'm doing with my voice and inflection. So who trained who? But I changed his environment so that he might respond accordingly. But I'm changing. I'm changing. My wife told me, I emptied the dishwasher. She goes, you know what? That's kind of attractive that you are taking dishes out of the dishwasher and putting them in the cabinets. And I was like, really? And I think I do it a little bit more. Her behavior changed my behavior. So that's an important piece. It's an important and that realize that you have some control. It's not the responsibility of others. There might be some responsibility, but in regards to social justice, but you have some responsibility and control, and we need to take care of ourselves. We need to really make sure that we are caring for ourselves, because a lot of this has to do with prevention as opposed to intervention. When I was a lifeguard and an EMT, we'd hire people. And we would have, especially for the lifeguarding, we would have these tryouts. But we would be waiting for the manager to come out, and we might measure each other up. And this is a long time ago. I mean, this is 30 years ago I'm doing this, but we measure each other up and say, oh, so how many saves did you have this summer? What? Well, I had 2 saves, and well, this person had 3. Well, this person had 5. Whoa, they did CPR, and so we start to measure ourselves. When I became the lead lifeguard and started hiring people, I don't want to hire. I realized I don't want to hire 7 save guy. I want to hire the person that had maybe 2. We are going to have to jump in the water, but I also want a lifeguard that's going to prevent accidents from happening, pulling people out of the pool, off the beach when they're tired, watching the weather, making sure things are safe, making sure that their body is rested and not been at the club all the night before and got their glasses on and not really looking at the pool and not paying attention, but they're rested. When I'm at the children's home, my staff make sure that they are rested, that their emotional, social needs are met, so that they can be present in meeting the needs of others. So taking care of ourselves actually helps us with prevention. We will have to jump in the pool from time to time, but sometimes we create some of the messes too. But I think in general, leaders, we need to be thinking about prevention, offering intervention, but having a culture of wellness, a culture of prevention. We're going to talk about that. This trusting culture where prevention is a priority and intervention is offered. So what is our reactions or responses to stress? Unhealthy, healthy. And I use the word, two words, reactions and responses. I prefer response, responding versus reacting. Responding means I've thought about something and I'm tackling it maybe in a more healthy manner. I know what's going on. Reaction is just me reacting to a stimulus. So I want to make a difference with those two words, reacting versus responding, in that that we pay attention to that word responding to stress. Hearing stress, sitting in that moment for a minute, finding out what that stress is telling us, what we might be afraid of, what the outcome might be. Again, when we are worrying, I didn't say this before, but when we are worrying or fearful, we're thinking about things that haven't happened and may not ever happen. We're thinking about the future. We're imagining things that might happen. They might come to be, but they might not. And so that is something that we need to consider as well. But what are our responses? When I'm reacting, I'm usually not too healthy in my responses to stress. For instance, if at the end of the month, I'm on my phone and I happen to look at my bank account and kids needed money and this bill was this, and the bedroom flooded and it cost this, and I look at that dollar amount, and all of a sudden I find myself in front of the fridge pulling out things to make nachos at 11 o'clock. And I'm not hungry. That really has to do with this. I need some kind of nacho hug. It's an emotional thing that's happening to me. Unfortunately, I know it half the time. And I've actually done better, but that's an unhealthy reaction. Or maybe some of us distract ourselves from our stress and not hear the message it's sending us by playing video games or drinking alcohol or buying things online or whatever it might be. But again, your response and you are in control. So it's something that we really need to at least agree on and think about in how we manage those things. So I would say maybe take a little self-assessment. How have you been feeling lately? And when it hits like it was hitting for me yesterday and this past week, it's really hard to do that self-assessment. But how am I feeling right now? And I want to really sit in it and pay attention to that. We call it emotion focused. Focus on the emotion and what is that emotion telling me? When you cut your arm, let's say, because of an injury, you're created in such a way where you feel this sensation of pain and you look at that. And that is saying, take care of this business. I think it's similar to anxiety and depression. Sit in it, feel that sadness, feel it. And by the way, it's okay to be anxious at times, and it's okay to have sadness. It's part of life. I think our culture has this problem with being uncomfortable a little bit too much. But uncomfortable is okay. In fact, largely it's good for us here and there. But when the stress becomes something that makes us unable to function on a daily level, we need to really be paying attention to that. And what is that message? What is that telling us? What is our main source of stress? How do you manage it? What do you do to care for yourself? And think of who, what, when, where, how. How do you do these things? how do you cope with these kinds of things? I think there's some, I can give you some examples in that you really may already know. These aren't groundbreaking things, but remember to take a break. And I'm not just talking about time, although that's good, but take a break, change your energy, change it, move from a higher to a higher level energy. Maybe take a walk or take a run or do something like that, or move it to a lower energy, relaxing. But move that energy from high to low as far as taking a break of where you are in your day. I've had kids, let's say, and actually I've done this in presentations where in classes that I teach on, 8 hours on Saturday, and it's too long, and even those people are getting a little rambunctious. And everybody stand up. I want you to write your name in the air with your elbow. Do your signature with your forehead. Do it with your knee. Do it with your hip. And they're first off, they're kind of shocked. Secondly, it's kind of funny. And I might have half the class watch the other half. Anyway, we takes a couple of minutes. It changes their energy. Everyone's engaged again. But think about those kinds of things. Body, mind connection. I think taking care of body is important. The health of your body, nutrition, taking care of your social needs, finding time to relax. And really, this one's interesting, finding ways to be creative. I think we're made to be creative. And I know I feel good when I do things that are creative. I'm not very good at some of those things, but that's also a good exercise for me to not worry about others' judgment and do it for my own well-being. But I do things, think about those things that you do to relax. I think it's important to do something physical for the body, something creative or something relaxing, at least 1 hour a day. And some of you are like, 1 hour a day. I'm like that. What do you mean 1 hour a day? That's a lot. In one way it is, and one way it's really not a lot, especially if it makes the rest of our day much more productive. One of the things I do to relax, and I think Clay Beeson is on here, but he introduced this video to me. It's on YouTube. I'll have Andrea share the link, but it's called Wilderness Cooking. And it's this guy from Azerbaijan, and he doesn't say a lot when he's cooking in the wilderness, which I love both of those things. In fact, he doesn't say anything at all towards most of his videos, but he's chopping vegetables, and there's music. He takes a tea break in the middle, which I find interesting, and he shows the mountains and things like that. I will warn you, it may not be for everyone, because some of the recipes, although many of the recipes are vegetarian, some of them are not. So the chopping for some may not be that relaxing. But anyway, for me, the vegetable chopping and things like that is, and I like seeing that, and it relaxes me. But I will also say that he takes effort in showing how he sharpens his knives. He shows preparation for things, whether it's building this oven, but this sharpening the knives, I think, is interesting. There's another video that I've watched before, Dick Pinnicky, Alone in the Wilderness. This man who is building this cabin, he's gifted at carpentry, craftsmanship. It's mesmerizing. He makes the locks on the door and shapes the hinges and makes his spoons and makes everything. And this is back before iPhones and even VHS. He's got film strips, and he's filming himself and journaling things, but he takes a moment a lot of the times to show him sharpening each blade of tooth of the saw. And it seems like when you really think about it, he had to set that tripod up. He has to get, all these things out and turn that camera on and then go set the scene and sit in front of it and then sharpen. Why would he do that? Well, I mean, maybe the same reason wilderness cooking guy is sharpening his knives is because it's really important. That's his tool. Those are his tools of the trade. And for many of us, those of us that have tools in our jobs, whether we're doctors or dentists or carpenters or I consult with an industrial product place here. We take care of those things, whether it's our vehicle, whatever. But also, oftentimes we forget the tools that we use most, especially when we relate to people, is our body, minds, and emotions. Those things have to be cared for. Those things have to be sharp. And how do we get them sharp? We need to get them sharp really outside of work, but we could get them sharpened sometimes inside of work, but outside of work, we need to make sure we meet those needs. So doing that, I think, is helpful. Noticing that your body, your mind needs to be sharpened, and your emotions. It's emotional. As we work in our jobs, we are working with people, and we have relationships at work. Another thing I might do is on my calendar, I know some of you do this too, I build in boundaries and margin into my calendar. I think my supervisor is watching this and I don't know that he agrees with me. I think I would like to do that, but sometimes I do swaths of time where people can't get in to protect boundaries. Or I might make an appointment to go to the gym, make an appointment to go for a short walk or to get a coffee or something like that. One of the main things I think we could do is counter negative self-talk or distorted thoughts. And there's this connection between our emotions and our thinking. Now, this is theoretical as well, but I think I think that it works in that. Let's say, here at Harding University, we have a cafeteria or a student center. Let's say a college student, by the way, if you remember, if you are one or have one or seen them, they're kind of anxious oftentimes. But you walk into the student center, even maybe imagine yourself doing this now, walk into the student center and everyone looks at you. Everyone looks at you. Now, you might have different feelings. Or might have different thoughts. You might be thinking something's wrong. I'm having a bad hair day. My zipper's down, something. No one likes me. Or you might think nothing because the door is squeaky and the light changed and there was movement and that just draws people's attention. And a third person might walk in and everyone looks at them and they might think, wow, I must be looking really good today. Everybody's looking at me. And that's an example that I can use to say it's the same event, but three different interpretations. And by the way, there's many interpretations as there are people that walk in that door, but it's the same event, different interpretations. And the way that we interpret the world around us, the lens in which we see the world around us, affects the way we feel. If you feel like there's something wrong with you or think something's wrong with you, you're going to feel not very good. So there's this connection. And there's sometimes when I'm in counseling, I'm listening for these words that suggest a distorted thought. We might have people catastrophizing things, minimizing things, dichotomy in thinking. There's always and never pulling evidence out of context to support your erroneous thought about yourself. Well, see, this person didn't like me, so I'm not, I don't have what it takes. I'm not any good. It's just one person that maybe doesn't like you. So we pull that evidence out, or that we personalize things. Well, of course it's raining today because I wanted to do this, and that's just the way. Well, it is raining for everybody. But we pull those things out, and then it reinforces our thinking patterns, which are erroneous. And so that message may be, let's fix that. And so what I would do in the counseling session is help people find these distorted thoughts, this stinking thinking, this erroneous way of thinking, and find a more accurate way of thinking. Now, I'm not doing that. They're doing the work there. We call that cognitive behavioral therapy. I think it's pretty useful, especially for anxiety and depression. By the way, I think in general, for when we think of clinical depression and clinical anxiety, talk therapy is in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is really good for mild depression, anxiety. Severe depression, anxiety, medication is something that we really might need, because you're not in the space to do talk therapy. But moderate anxiety, moderate types of depression, a mixture of medication and talk therapy are better than either one alone. And so finding that accuracy of thinking and countering negative self-talk is really important. But we get in these habits of it, and it perpetuates itself, and it becomes like a muscle memory of thought. It becomes very difficult to notice. We have to do some thought stopping, identify it, stop those thoughts, and then kind of start to unzip that, because it does become a vicious cycle. Social media and the comparison trap that we get in is also somewhat of a problem. When we're on those things, maybe we're distracting ourselves from stress, but we're on those things and we are comparing our lives to other people, and we know everything about our lives and all the things that aren't so pretty. And then you have this Instagram type photograph of somebody who has made themselves, look perfect. We begin to think that their whole life looks that way. And really, it's just a commercial of their life. It's kind of like going to McDonald's. I don't go there. At least that's what I'm going to tell y'all. But and looking at the menu, and that that hamburger looks really good. And then when I get it, it doesn't look anything like that. It's not true. They sold me something that doesn't look like what they're suggesting. And I think we have to be paying attention to those things as well. Related to that is another point, is to have realistic expectations. Have realistic expectations of yourself. Leaders, managers have realistic expectations of the people around you. This reduces frustration, reduces anger. Anger is a secondary emotion to fear, reduces anxiety. When we have the expectations that we know what they are, they're not ambiguous, and they are realistic. I was helping a company out of Colorado. These two people that own this company were having some difficulties with each other. They were having conflict. And so they came to visit, and we did an intensive weekend, and we got a lot of work done. It was really difficult, but it wasn't done after that intensive weekend. And this is it's not difficult thing to do. It's just somewhat time consuming and takes some energy. But I was listening to some things that they were talking about. In fact, the CEO was talking about some of the things that he did on his at his job. And I said, hey, I would like, when he's back in Colorado, send me your job description. So he goes, I don't really have a job description. I said, well, make one of what you're doing. Because you told me you were stacking wood or doing something like that. And I'm just interested. So he writes this big old long job description. And I send it back and I say, okay, there's some things here that CEOs don't do. I mean, generally, I think maybe do it sometimes, but on job description, I don't know if you need to have that there. But, show an example, yes, but make me 2 job descriptions out of this. It makes 2 job descriptions, sends it back. And I said, good. Which one do you want? And now hire this other person. What's it worth? His health was getting, talking about talk about stress affecting your body. He was having some, even heart palpitations and breathing issues, and it's really all stress related. Hire that person and be home some and go golfing. And this isn't difficult stuff, but sometimes my point is that you get stuck in your everydayness and you can't see things, and you need maybe some eyes from the outside to look at things so that it can kind of help. But the expectations were not realistic for themselves, and they weren't realistic for the person they were having conflict with. That's why the frustration was there to begin with, and really not realistic for a lot of other employees. We're going to come back to this a little bit later. I would also say that we need to advocate for ourselves. Sometimes to your own self, you need to advocate. I can take a break. I need a break, or you need to advocate for yourself. Counseling may be something that we do. There's a company in town that I work with, and I'm also going to bring them up a little bit later too. But they have a system or a policy that says if you need counseling, you can contact Todd Patten, and it's free of charge for the company. The company pays for that counseling or that therapy or that check-in or that referral. And the CEO says, and I don't have to know about it. You just do it. And here's who he is. And so I've been over there introducing myself and do some lunch and learns and things like that. The other thing I think, one more thing as far as how to manage or coping with this type of thing that I think is most useful for me is this idea of changing hats. I sometimes wear a hat to work, and I actually change the physical hat. I have a work hat, and then I'm trying to leave work at work and be at the house. When I was working on my doctorate in Memphis and moving to Searcy, or back and forth from Searcy to Memphis, sometimes when I was in Searcy, I was thinking about my doctorate in Memphis, and sometimes in Memphis, I'm thinking about home or thinking about work. And really what I need to do is be in the place I'm at and then leave the place. There's this exercise I do when I'm counseling with people. I call it containment exercise. I don't call it that. That's what it is. People that are traumatized, and we're talking about trauma in this office for a little while, and then they're supposed to go to work or go to school or something like that. Problems and stressors are important to people. And so they want to make sure that it's safe. So oftentimes they carry it around with them all the time, and they think about it and dwell on it because it's important. But what I think about, what I can help them with, is this containment exercise where we might do some guided imagery. Maybe it's a bookstore, maybe it's something like these books here. It could be anything. Anything that I can use to contain their problem, put it in one of these books, leave it here, keep it safe. They know where it is, and they can come and get it at any time, and they feel safe enough to leave it. Similar to what I've told my aunt when she lost her child. She couldn't function after even years of, during the day. Of course not. It was horrible. But I suggested that she have 3 o'clock in the day to really wail, be mad at God, scream at him, cuss at him, whatever she needs to do. 3 o'clock. So she told me that that was good for her. Everything doesn't work for everyone, but that was good for her because she was able to go to the store and knowing that she had 3 o'clock. So it's kind of containing things a little bit. It's keeping them safe, because you want to be connected to some of that. It's part of your story, but containing them so that we can be functional. Leave it to the side and hold on to it, but leave it to the side so you can do some things knowing that you can come back to those things. So leaders, As you know, a healthy workplace is good for employees. Healthy and happy employees are good for business. So we want to create this culture of wellness, but one size doesn't fit all. We want to care for the employees, but that's different. And depending on our organization and the needs of our employees and the needs of your organization, you may need some help with that. You may need some consultation. But this kind of culture, this safety, this culture of having supportive and trusted supervisors helps with retention of your employees, helps with productivity. So when I mean trusted, are the employees comfortable giving their managers and leaders feedback? There's a stat, and this is from David Ballard. He's a psychologist. He's got an MBA. He works at the American Psychological Association. But he said 58% of workers in the U.S. only feel valued. Only 58% feel valued. That's not very much. So meaningful work is important for employees, feeling connected to the mission of the organization. So that also means we have to make sure that we've got a good mission that everyone was a part of, maybe in creating, and feels part of that mission. And we have to make sure that we have people that feel useful and they're not underemployed. That they're able to rise to a task where they feel very useful. Oftentimes in work, we meet personal needs. I'm not saying that we necessarily need to meet all of our needs there, but it needs to meet the occupational needs or the calling needs of the employee. We need to make sure that things fit. There are also interpersonal relationships at work, work life. Work is a large part of life. And then that makes me think also of the work-life balance. Now, what can employers do? Of course, when we need to reward our employees and make them part of the organization and make sure they're fitting with the mission and they believe and they're part of that mission and things like that. But of course, we're going to reward them, and money is important, really important. I remember working at a grocery store and something happened with payroll and I wasn't getting, my first job, not getting paid on time, and that hits morale pretty hard. But there are other types of rewards besides money that help with morale. Money is not the only type of thing. But I want us to think in terms of rewards instead of punishment. Rewards in general work better than punishment. Punishment really doesn't work. And if punishment worked, police would not be giving speeding tickets anymore. But if you stop me on the way to Memphis and say, Mr. Patten, hey, this was a great lane change. I like the way you use your blinker. I love the way you got your hands on 10 and 2, and you're just going perfectly through here. Here's $150. You can bet your life, as I go through that small town where that speed trap used to be, that I'm going to be going the right speed. And I know that's the case because we will do so much for reward. And punishment only is, we do so much for reward. And my sister lives in Vegas. You can just go to Vegas and see what people do for the potential for a reward. But we only really respond to punishment when the punisher's there. Other policies, I think employee assistance programs, EAPs, many of you are familiar with, those are useful. Having insurance that helps with mental health care, that's just a signal that says we care about this, this is the kind of company we are. Having mental health days where my wife works, they have mental health days. They're going to take them anyway. They're going to call them something different, as Dr. Bishop said. Safe access to managers and leaders. As I said, I worked with this company here in town. There's a couple of companies that I've worked with leadership or with wellness. But this is a industrial products company, and they use something called Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. And Angela will leave a link for this. And I've seen this in person. It's a culture shift. It helps with change. It provides resources, counseling, stress, motivation. I go there and do, because they have this system, they asked me to come there and do lunch and learns, and I can see this culture. And because I've been exposed to that in this company with Colorado, I've suggested after I've done my intervention with them that they contact these people and get those resources to kind of help change their culture, because I don't want to reinvent the wheel here. Now, we also consult some, but these people have a lot more resources. So I would say take a look at that. There's other places, other things there, and that's just a start. If you have any questions, leave it with us and we can get back to you. You can call us here and we can talk about specific situations if we need to. But I want to leave you with this. What's one thing you can implement this week that will help with creating a culture of wellness? What's one thing? And then with that one thing, what's just one step that you can take to move in that direction? So just one thing and then one step. So I hope this is just a reminder, it gets you thinking about these things. I enjoy being with you. I hope it at least puts us in the right frame of mind to be seeking and looking for ways to be more productive, meet your own needs, and to enjoy your life. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you so much to everyone who joined us today. Your participation is important and valued, just as you are important and valued. I have put a list of some of the resources that Todd and I put together as we were working on this webinar in the chat, so feel free to copy that for your own use later, but also reach out to Todd or to me. maol@harding.edu is a great way to contact us, and we'll be happy to respond. We hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us. Bye.